What's up, trainers? Jumpmaster here, bringing you exciting Pokemon Go news and updates, PvP battles, and tips and tricks on how to enhance your Pokemon Go gameplay and experience. Lately, I've also started opening Pokemon cards, such as boxes, packs, tins, promotional cards, and other offers. Today, we're going over my second Sinister Cup that I did. You are only allowed to use Ghost, Psychic, Steel, and Fighting type Pokemon. As we know previously, the Sinister Cup does not allow Dark typing, Mythical Pokemon, Skarmory, or Hypno. This is the second Sinister Cup that I have done this month, and I am stubborn and hard-headed, so I went in with the same team as I did my first Sinister Cup. As you can see, it is Mawile, Poliwrath, Drifblim, Gallade, Steelix, and Alolan Marowak. Taking a look at my first opponent, we are going up against the Collector 06. You can see he's using Xatu, Bastiodon, Banette, Poliwrath, Awok, and Medicham. During my first match, I elected to go in with Gallade, Drifblim, and Poliwrath. So starting off, we see that he will get to a Bone Club before us. And I did block this, and that was a major mistake on my end. I was counting correctly, but I did return with a Leaf Blade. In the event he did use one of his shields, I immediately switched into a Drifblim, and he throws a Shadow Ball at my Drifblim. I should have blocked right here. I knew he had enough for a Shadow Ball, but that's fine. My Drifblim goes down, out comes my Gallade, and I will use another Leaf Blade. This right here, he does not block, and it does KO his Awok. In comes his Bastiodon. I will use Confusions all the way up until close combat. After I throw this close combat, he does block, and then I will charge back up to another Leaf Blade, and I will let that off. He's just farming down my Gallade in this event, just saving up his energy. That is very smart on his end. Down goes my Gallade. Out comes my Poliwrath. I know that this right here will be a Stone Edge, but I do block it anyway. I know he still has 2 Pokemon left. I should have farmed down just a little bit more instead of going straight into the Dynamic Punch, but I do know that he was farming down my Poliwrath. Now it's a race to the Dynamic Punch. I know this right here cannot be a Dynamic Punch, it is a Dynamic Punch, my apologies. I do farm him down just a little bit, and then I launch a Dynamic Punch, but this is not enough to kill his Poliwrath, so I throw the Ice Punch off immediately, trying not to allow him to get another hit off on me, but it's just not enough to kill him, and he will launch a Dynamic Punch at me, and that will KO my Poliwrath. So going into the second game, I elect to use Drifblim, Alolan Marowak, and Poliwrath. I forgot who he starts with here. I think he starts with Awok again. Nope, he comes out with a Xatu. So it is my Drifblim against Xatu. So I do charge up my energy enough until I get to a Shadow Ball. He gets to move faster than I do. He throws the Ominous Wind and I block it. So I go immediately for the Shadow Ball to see if I can KO this Xatu, in which he does block. So I switch into my Awok. And he's going to throw, I think, an Ominous Wind. Yeah, an Ominous Wind at me. And then he immediately switches into his Poliwrath, so I do throw a Shadow Ball at him. He just tanks that, and then he charges his energy up, and he's going to throw, I think this was a Dynamic Punch at me. Yes, it was, in which I will use my shield, and then just immediately throw a Bone Club back at his Poliwrath. That does KO him, and out comes his Bastiodon. He does just farm down my Alolan Marowak. He doesn't need to throw any charge moves there. And I think he saves up to a Stone Edge right here on my Poliwrath. And incoming Stone Edge. Yep, that's right. And then he immediately switches into his Xatu. I tried to actually switch out right there, but it didn't let me. Instead, it used my Ice Punch. That's still fine. Back out comes his Bastiodon, so I will launch this Dynamic Punch at his Bastiodon, in which he does block. I switch to my Drifblim, and I will throw a Shadow Ball. I think this is a Shadow Ball at his Bastiodon. Yes, it is. And then he just farms down my Drifblim to save up his energy and throw another Stone Edge at my Poliwrath. In the event, I will just build up my energy to a Dynamic Punch just to KO his Bastiodon right here. And then that will be the second game to me. So we're 1-1 at the current time. Going into game 3, I go in with Alolan Marowak, Mawile, and Gallade. Or my apologies, I go in there with Steelix, Drifblim, and Poliwrath. I save my energy up and I throw a Crunch at his Awok that he first puts out, in which he'll block, and then this right here incoming will be a Bone Club, in which I block to conserve my Steelix. Now we're both at 1-1 shield, so I will throw another Crunch at his Awok, in which he lets go through, and he's going to throw a Shadow Ball at another Bone Club at my Steelix, which I do let go through. It would not let me switch right there. He's going to throw another Bone Club, which will KO my Steelix. That's perfectly fine. So I think I do come in with my Drifblim, and I just farm down his Alolan Marowak. I didn't want him to know that I had a Steelix or a Poliwrath in the back. And since I had the energy advantage, I just went for a Hail Mary and threw that Shadow Ball. Now I have the shield advantage, and I know that I can just KO his Banette. All I need to do is just shield right here, which I did, and then I'll just throw this first Ominous Wind that I get to, and that should KO his Banette. Now he reveals his third Pokemon, and it is Medicham. That is not good for him. I was trying to get to a Shadow Ball. I think I did get to a Shadow Ball, actually. And that will KO his Medicham. And then that is GG's for the Collector 06. My next opponent is Omniscient Squid. Her team is Alolan Dugtrio, Mawile, Poliwrath, Girafarig, Slowking, and Alolan Marowak. That Alolan Dugtrio really threw me off the first time I played her, but let's look at the games here. I elect to go in with Alolan Marowak, Mawile, and Gallade. So I start with Awok, and she comes in with Slowking. I'm just saving my energy up, and man, that thing is doing so much damage to my Awok. So I will immediately launch off a Shadow Ball, and which she does block. I immediately switch into my Gallade, and she will throw a Psychic here, in which I block. I save up my energy, and I launch a Leaf Blade back at her Slowking. She lets this go through, and it does KO her. Then she sends out her Poliwrath, so I will just immediately throw another Leaf Blade. I'm just saving up energy. That Poliwrath is doing a lot of damage, though. She does block and returns an Ice Punch back at my Gallade. I do block, and I get to one more Leaf Blade, and I throw that back at her Poliwrath, and she lets it go through because she's out of shields, and then out comes her Mawile. Down goes my Gallade. I elect to go in with, I think I went back in with my Mawile. Now it's Mawile versus Mawile. She will get to this Power-Up Punch first, which will increase her bite damage. And then I will get to my Power-Up Punch, which will increase my bite damage. So right here, it's just pretty much who can get to it quicker. Then I elect to just go ahead and throw in my Awok, which I did try to get to that Bone Club, as you saw, and I will let it off, and that should kill that Mawile and be the end of the first game. Going into round 2, I elect to go in here, I think, with Steelix, Alolan Marowak, and Poliwrath. Alright, so here we're going to just save up our energy. We know that she's going to throw a Bone Club at us because that would make a lot more sense, which she does. Incoming Bone Club, we just let that go through. She switches out to Poliwrath. We're just storing up some energy. And now we're going for the Hail Mary Earthquake to see if we can get that to land, which she blocks. And then we save up some energy again. We know this is probably going to be a dynamic punch, but it's a shield bait. She got it. She threw an ice punch, and then we throw another earthquake back at her Poliwrath, which she lets go through. As you can see, it took most of her health. We're just going to let this ice punch come through and hit our Steelix, and then we know our Poliwrath is down at minimum health, so I think I elect to go in with my Poliwrath here, which I do. She immediately switches into her AWOC. I don't know why I threw this dynamic punch. That is a bad call on my end. I should have just threw the ice punch. She did block it, and incoming, I think, a Shadow Ball here. Nope, it's just a Bone Club. So I switched to my own Alola Marowak. She will throw a Bone Club right here at me, I think. But it's a Shadow Ball. I'm sorry. I do get to my Bone Club and throw this back out to her Alola Marowak in the event she has no choice but to let it go through, and it does faint off her AWOC. In comes her Mawile, faints my AWOC. I have no choice but to play with my Poliwrath. Poliwrath comes in. I'm going to launch this dynamic punch. This is a bad call on my part. I should have just saved up some energy and then threw that first dynamic punch and then farmed her down. She does get to a power-up punch before me. Out comes Poliwrath. Poliwrath gets fainted. I get up to an ice punch, but I did faint down the Mawile before it could do any more damage. That was a really weird thing right there at the end, but that is the end of round 2. Going into the third round, I think I do the same thing. Steelix, Alola Marowak, and Poliwrath. She comes in with this Alolan Dugtrio. We know it is a ground-type Pokemon, so we charge a little bit and then switch out. I was unaware of how much damage this Mud Bomb right here actually did, but it almost KO'd my Alolan Marowak. And then as you see, she can just faint down my AWOC. So I come in with Poliwrath, faint down her Alolan Dugtrio, and now it's Poliwrath versus Poliwrath. I'm trying to shield bait right here and just throw an ice punch, in which she does let go through. So I'm going to build up some energy with her. I think that she throws an ice punch at me, yep, in which I block, which was my mistake. I'm still trying to get her shield, so I throw another ice punch, and I get one of her shields. Incoming dynamic punch, I'm pretty sure, but I do not block, and it almost KOs my Poliwrath. So I throw back another dynamic punch just because I barely got to it right there at the end, and then faint down her Poliwrath with mine. We both have 1/1 shields. In comes her Mawile, faints down my Poliwrath. I'm just going to build up to an Earthquake right here. And she does throw that power-up punch, which would have been super effective damage. I go for the Earthquake knowing she has a shield. I do get the shield bait. I'm trying to still build up to another Earthquake, which was this crunch right here that I threw was a bad call. I should have just built up to the Earthquake. I know I could have got to it after reviewing this footage. She does throw that power-up punch and then faints down my Steelix, and that is GG's 2-1 with her. Our next opponent is Autodidact 501. He's running Medicham, Bastiodon, Steelix, Dusclops, Haunter, and Alolan Marowak. Now this very first game, I know I go in there with Mawile first. I do bring Poliwrath, and I think my third Pokemon was a Steelix. So here you see Alolan, my bad, Marowak. My bad, not Marowak, Mawile. Here's Mawile versus Medicham. I'm pretty comfortable with this matchup, so I do start unloading those bites towards his Medicham. We do want to do as much damage to this Medicham as we possibly can. He throws an ice punch. I do let it go through. Down goes my Mawile. In comes my Poliwrath. I know he has enough for Psychic, so just to be safe, I am going to block it. He does throw that Hail Mary, so I save up my energy. I think this is just a power-up punch. Nope, it's an ice punch. I'm sorry. So we know he has ice punch and Psychic on his Medicham. In comes his Dusclops. I already have an ice punch ready, so I do throw a ice punch at his Dusclops, which he lets go through, and then I get to a dynamic punch. I don't know why I threw this, but it should have definitely been a second ice punch. Once again, that is another mistake I made during this tournament. So he throws a shadow ball or shadow punch at my, I guess at my Poliwrath. I immediately switch out to Steelix, and he fire punches me. Now I build up to an earthquake here, and I tried to shield bait him, so I throw a crunch out, in which he does let go through. And now we both have energy built up, and he will let a attack off. I think this was a crunch, but I blocked anyway, and I don't know why. I think I was just playing it safe. So I throw a crunch back at him, in which he blocks, and now it's just a race to the earthquake, which we know he's going to get to first. In comes this earthquake, which will KO my Steelix. Out goes my Poliwrath, which is already dead with no health. So the first game goes to Autodidact 501. The second game, I choose to go in with Drifblim, Poliwrath, and Mawile. So here we have Drifblim versus Steelix. I'm pretty comfortable with it. Once I switch into my Poliwrath, but he switches into his Medicham. So I throw an Ice Punch. He will let it go through. He's going to save up some energy. I call his bluff right here, and he throws an Ice Punch towards me. So I have enough energy saved up, so I throw another Ice Punch at him. Pretty much this is a race for Ice Punches for a little bit. I get to yet another Ice Punch, and he does block this, I believe. Yeah, he blocks it. And then I'm just going to try and feint him down, but instead he gets to a Ice Punch, which will KO my Poliwrath. Back comes in my Drifblim, and I will just farm down his Medicham, and he immediately throws out the Steelix and throws a crunch towards me. I do block it and then return a Shadow Ball towards him, just to try to do as much damage as I possibly can. He lets it go through. I switch out into my Mawile, and he gets up to an attack, and I think this is a crunch that's incoming. I just want to conserve my Mawile, so I do block it, and I feint him down. Out comes his Dusclops. We knew he probably brought this Dusclops, but I should have immediately threw this power-up punch. Instead, I held on to it. That did let him get a little bit of extra energy. He's going to throw a fire punch here, I believe. Yep, at my Mawile, and I'm going to just try to do as much damage as I can here. So I get to another power-up punch, and I will immediately throw that at him. He still has a shield. I do not have a shield. I think this is a Shadow Punch. I tried to catch him on the switch, but I was unable to. I do build up to a Shadow Ball. I knew that he was going to use a shield right here. He had no other choice. And he's going to throw a Shadow Punch back at my Drifblim and KO my Drifblim, leaving my Mawile that's already powered up to come in and hit him a couple times, and that will KO his Dusclops. Going into Game 3, I elect to bring Poliwrath, Steelix, and Drifblim, switch it up a little bit. So here we have Steelix versus Alolan Marowak. We know this is a bad situation for us, but we do save up to the almost one hit to an earthquake, knowing that he's probably going to throw a Bone Club. This was my third mistake that I noticed. I did block that Bone Club. Now I'm in a bad position here. Although I have saved up some energy, I know it's just straight Ice Punches that I need to do. So I throw the Ice Punch at him. He lets it go through. He saves up some energy. And throws a Shadow Punch at me, which I can't do anything, and then he gets to another Shadow Punch. So here I was just saving a little bit of energy. I let this Ice Punch off again, and he does let it go through. And I know that this Dusclops can be pretty deadly if I don't get rid of him, so I throw yet another Ice Punch, and he does block it. He's going to throw another, I think this is just another Shadow Punch at me. I let him feint my Poliwrath, and then I elect to come in here with my Steelix and just try to farm him down as much as possible. Now I have plenty of energy saved up on my Steelix. He's going to throw in his Alolan Marowak. We know that this is going to be a Bone Club, so we're just going to let this go through. And then we're going to throw the Earthquake right back to his Alolan Marowak, and that will KO his Alolan Marowak. In comes his own Steelix, and now we're going to throw an Earthquake, which I think goes through. Yes, it does, and we immediately switch out to our Drifblim to get him to use his energy up. We know that he's probably throwing a Crunch, which he does, so we block it, and we save up to an Ominous Wind here. And now this is pretty great. I did get his last shield, but I also got the buff. So we all know that once you get that buff with Drifblim, that is pretty hard to take down. So I build up to another Ominous Wind here, and this will KO his Steelix, leaving us at 2-1, and that is GG's Autodidact. Going into our fourth opponent, we're going to be playing Catching with Matt. He brought Alolan Marowak, Steelix, Mawile, Claydol, which is a beast in this tournament, Poliwrath, and Primeape. Going into our first game, I think I brought Poliwrath, Drifblim, and Steelix. So I'm pretty comfortable with the Alolan Marowak versus Poliwrath situation. Here I just go for a Hail Mary and throw a Dynamic Punch. Now that is not the correct play on me. I should have just threw an Ice Punch. But I do save energy backup after he switched to that Claydol, which is deadly for Poliwrath, and I Ice Punch. I know he's going to try to farm it down, so I switch into my Drifblim. And this Claydol lets off a Gyro Ball. I do save up plenty of energy, and then I just let an Ominous Wind get off before he can take too much more energy from me. He's going to bring back in his Alolan Marowak. And then I save up to another Ominous Wind, but I can't get it off, so I do block this Bone Club, and then I let the Ominous Wind go back towards him, in which he lets go through. So he's down to one Pokemon, but he still has that 2-shield advantage. I don't think I noticed my buff hit right there while I was playing, but I did switch into my Poliwrath, which he will throw an Ice Punch at me. I do give him my last shield and block it, in which I will return an Ice Punch, which will give me one of his shields. And now I'm just going to race up to another Ice Punch, but I think he gets to one first. Yes, he does, which leaves me with barely any health. And I should have been tapping Dynamic Punch right there, but I wasn't. I did throw this Ice Punch off and got a second shield, but that's still not good for me, because after my Poliwrath goes down, my Drifblim's pretty much already dead. So even if I throw my Steelix out here and it's a Dynamic Punch, he still has plenty of energy saved up. So right here I am trying to farm him down a little bit, just to try to get him as low as I possibly can, in the hopes that my Drifblim can come in and do something, but it's just not enough, and his Poliwrath KOs me. Going into the second game, I think I bring Drifblim, Poliwrath, and Steelix. So here we have Drifblim versus Mawile. I'm going to immediately change into my Poliwrath, which he calls and also switches into his Claydol. He now has me switch locked. I will throw this first Ice Punch. He lets it go through. And then I will throw another Ice Punch before he can let anything off, in which he does block. And I think I get to another Ice Punch right here. Yes, I do, which he just lets go through. So it kind of looks like it's going good for us right now, but not really. Our Poliwrath is pretty much dead. We know he does have a Poliwrath, and I did not bring a Poliwrath counter. I think I threw my Steelix out. Bad call on my end. This is definitely a match that he can win. I tried to switch right here. It would not let me. I knew that was a bad call on my end. He throws an Ice Punch and gets my first shield, so I just go ahead and throw an Earthquake at the Poliwrath. This is another Hail Mary play. He does block it. I tried to once again switch into my Drifblim, but it would not let me, so here is the third time I'm trying to switch into my Drifblim. It finally lets me. We know that this right here is going to be a power-up punch, and he's going to try to build up that bite damage. So that power-up punch comes in, we build up to a Shadow Ball, and that will KO the Mawile. But we still have this Poliwrath to worry about. Although we did get to that Ominous Wind, he got to his Ice Punch before we could let it off, which KOs our Drifblim. Out comes our Steelix. We were not going to get to that Earthquake. I should have let that crunch off with the hopes of it doing some, with the hopes of it feigning him, but I think the only way to beat him right there was to let the Earthquake off, so I was trying to get to Earthquake. Going into round 3, I think I brought Poliwrath, Steelix, and Alolan... No, Mawile. I brought Mawile this game also. So here we have Poliwrath versus Poliwrath. His first attack is a Dynamic Punch. We do let that go through. We've built up plenty of energy, so we're going to throw our first Dynamic Punch at him. He does nothing, he lets it go through, so we throw our first Ice Punch at his Poliwrath, which he lets go through. It would not let me switch once again. I'm just not having a very good time switching during this tournament. He throws an Ice Punch at my Poliwrath, it goes through, and we faint down his Poliwrath. So we're pretty much in the same predicament we were the first time. He lets off, or brings out his Alolan Marowak, and I let this Ice Punch off, trying to switch out immediately. So once again, the switch still doesn't work. I am just straight sticky switch stuck this entire time during this tournament. This is going to be a Bone Club, so we do block it up. We're trying to do as much damage to that Alolan Marowak as possible. Here comes another Bone Club, so we do block it, knowing how much damage it can do. And now we're going to throw this Power Up Punch and get that Alolan Marowak out of the way, start doing some bite damage to it, and man, look how quick it just goes down. Out comes his Claydol, so I do switch into my Steelix. I build up my energy. I think this right here is an Earth Power from his Claydol. Yes, it is. My Steelix does he takes that. I should have threw Crunch right here, not Earthquake. I knew he had 2 shields and he was going to use one. Either way, I do get to another Crunch and let this Crunch off, in which he will block, and he just farms down my Steelix with that Confusion attack. Builds up so much damage. Like I said, Claydol is just such a beast during this tournament if you play him right. In comes my Mawile. He already has an Earth Power ready to go. That will KO my Mawile, and that is GG's. So he does beat me 0-3. And our final opponent in this 5-round tournament is Notfos. You see, he brought Steelix, Awok, Gallade, Cresselia, Empoleon, and Metacham. This is the first Cresselia I've seen during the tournament. And I think game 1, I elect to bring Drifblim, Mawile, and Alolan Marowak. Now, I did not get too much practice with Mawile, but I have been trying to play with him more since this tournament. But anyway, going into this match, I build up to the Shadow Ball, and I do throw it out as Awok. He elects to block it, and we know he's saved up enough to come to a Shadow Ball, so to be safe, we do block that Shadow Ball. I should have switched right here, but I didn't. Instead, I built up to another Shadow Ball and threw that at his Alolan Marowak, in which he will save up enough energy to throw another Shadow Ball at me. I should have just let my Drifblim go down right here, but I'm very stubborn and wanted to keep him. He knew that since he got both of my shields, he could immediately switch to Steelix and start doing some hardcore damage. So in comes that Steelix. I will get to this Power-Up Punch, but he does have energy for an Earthquake to KO this Mawile that we have against him. So I think I throw out my Alolan Marowak here. Yes, I do. I will get to a Bone Club. Well, actually, no, he throws this Earthquake first. So I eat this Earthquake, no shields. So I do throw a Bone Club. Yeah, I did get to the Bone Club. But it's not enough to KO, so we do have to feign him down with our Fire Spin. And then out comes his Alolan Marowak. I immediately hit Ominous Wind when I threw my Drifblim out, which KO'd his Awok, but he has this Gallade in the back, and I will not get to any attack before he can KO me. Going into game 2, I brought Drifblim, Mawile, and Steelix, trying a different team composition here. So here we have the same matchup, Drifblim versus Alolan Marowak. I figured he would block if I just saved up some energy, so I threw this Ominous Wind, and we do get his first shield. We also know that he has enough energy saved up for a Shadow Ball, so he throws that and we do block it. And we're going to let off another Ominous Wind, trying to bait his second shield, in which we do get it. Now we do have the shield advantage and the third Ominous Wind, so we do let that off, which will KO that AWOC. Out comes his Steelix, so I say switch into my Mawile, and I'm just going to try to do as much damage as I can with that bite. He does play Crunch right here and shield baits me to get my last shield, but I do get this Power Out Punch off, which will do some damage. Now we're both out of shields, and that bite just looks so cool on the screen. I think that was an Earthquake, completely kills my Mawile, so I think I let my Drifblim back out. Yes, I did. I just build up to this Ominous Wind in hopes for a buff. I do not get the buff, but I do get to Faint down his Steelix. Out comes his Gallade, which just immediately deletes my Drifblim, and as you can see, I did try to switch, but once again, it would not let me switch for nothing. I don't know what was going on this tournament with switching. I try to get up to this Earthquake, and I do. I do let this Earthquake off, and that is enough just to KO that Gallade, and I hung on by a thread right there. Going into Game 3, I elect to bring AWOC, Mawile, and Steelix. So here we have Alola Marowak matchups. I do save up enough energy for a Shadow Ball. I know this is Shadow Ball incoming, so I do block it. I throw a Bone Club at him in hopes to get his first shield. I think that he did call my bluff right here and just let it go through. So I immediately throw a Shadow Ball back at him. I should have threw a second Bone Club, but he did block that Shadow Ball. I save up to yet another Bone Club to try to get his second shield, and I do. I tried to switch into Mawile right there. It would not let me for nothing. I should have just let that Bone Club he threw at me go through. But now I think we're both out of shields. This is going to be a Shadow Ball. It is going to take out my Alola Marowak. In comes my Mawile. And I'm just going to start using that bite to KO that AWOC. Out comes his Steelix. I will use Power Up Punch here to try to get to as much damage as I can. Once again, tried to switch, still wouldn't let me. Tried to switch, still wouldn't let me. Finally, the game lets me switch, but it's too late. He's already saved up to an Earthquake, so he will Earthquake my Steelix. And then he immediately switches into this Cresselia. Here I knew I had the match lost. There is no way to come back. Even if I could switch, I was switch locked right here. The game wouldn't let me switch no matter what. Either way, this Cresselia comes out, so I'm just trying to do as much damage as I possibly can. He's just farming down my Steelix. Out comes my Mawile, in which I will eat this Future Sight. I knew he had Future Sight for this predicament. I get up to the Power Up Punch. I should have saved this for his Steelix, but instead I didn't. I didn't know exactly how many hits his Cresselia did. I wasn't counting. I was just kind of upset at the time during the sticky switches, but out comes his Steelix and he just faints me down. Thank you to everybody in the top-notch triangle that came out to the tournament that we had. Thanks for helping us have these tournaments, and major thanks to everybody out there that watches my channel and supports me in my hobby, which is Pokemon. If you like my channel, please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching. Jumpmaster out.